there's a new thing that exposes what we've been covering for the past year or two, and we certainly covered it in Gonzo, and that's this soft totalitarianism, because face crime has officially jumped the pages of George Orwell's 1984, and it exists today in 2019 in the United States. Of course, everybody knows about the story, the confrontation between the Covington Catholic High School student, who's 16 years old, and the elder from the Native American tribe. And, you know, we're not going to go into that because whatever you want to think about what happened is what happened. But face crime became official because, just to remind you of what face crime is, in 1984, in any case, to wear an improper expression on your face, to look incredulous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in newspeak, face crime, it was called. So many in the resistance and many well-known Hollywood sorts were calling for the punching of this boy in the face because of his smug face.
Yeah, welcome to Cherokee Nation, dude. In other words, the native population of America has to be living with this type of totalitarianism for their entire 300 years here in North America. And in prison populations, you know, don't smile, don't laugh, because you might get, you know, beaten to within an inch of your life. And now here's a privileged white guy on somebody else's front porch over there in the lands of the Native Americans who dared to have a face that was inappropriate to the screaming liberal class on the so-called liberal networks in America. So he's been now called out as somebody worthy of violence. I mean, this is the way the Native Americans have been living for hundreds of years. They can't even use a different expression on their face without getting violently attacked. Now we know what that's like.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to, like, that's, in Gonzo, we cover that sort of side of the story, and it's a very, very, very important story because the Native American story has been memory hold. That is part of totalitarianism. But I'm going to go into some of the definitions available online about totalitarianism, because this is also importantly why we've talked about gold, silver, and Bitcoin for all the years, is how to escape that sort of groupthink and what this is happening in our culture. We saw the first signs of it in this new phase of a more hysterical phase with the whole deplatforming. You commit thought crimes and you must be removed from the public space. Your individual behavior is wrong and we must whip ourselves up into a frenzy, an online outrage mob, and that's what you're seeing. So let's look at some of the definitions from here's yourdictionary.com. Totalitarian means relating to a government where the ruler or ruling group has complete control. Now, Wikipedia goes a little bit deeper into this because, of course, that could be authoritarianism, but they're saying it's different from authoritarianism because in authoritarianism, yes, you have a group of an elite and perhaps a dictator who controls everything, but they're only interested in political power, and they want to control the politics, and that is usually with the military. So with totalitarianism, they want to control every single aspect of you. The term totalitarianism arose out of Italy, totalitario. This is, Mussolini wanted to control the entire mind of the population. You could commit thought crimes.
So this is interesting in that we see it jump from authoritarianism to totalitarianism, and we see it jump from thought crime to face crime. To Facebook should rename itself as face crime because they are assisting and abating this move toward totalitarianism. And the question, I guess, is why? Why now? Why is totalitarianism rearing its ugly head in America at this time in history?
Yeah, and a lot of people will think, they'll think of the old days of authoritarianism, of totalitarianism, and that the fascists will be kneecapping you and stuff like that. But here it's you get cut off from the grid, you get cut off from the banking grid, you get cut off from the public square. Our community meets online, it meets on Facebook, it meets on Twitter. They don't need to come kneecap you. What they do is they deplatform you. They put you into a memory hole that you're not even part of the community. And let's go to Wikipedia's definition of it. Totalitarianism is a political concept of a mode of government which prohibits opposition parties, restricts individual opposition to the state and its claims, and exercises an extremely high degree of control over public and private life. It is regarded as the most extreme and complete form of authoritarianism. Political power in totalitarian states has often been held by rule by one leader, which employ all-encompassing propaganda campaigns broadcast by state-controlled mass media. Totalitarian regimes are often marked by political repression, personality cultism, control over the economy, restriction of speech, mass surveillance, and widespread use of state terrorism.
Well, it's the opposite of anarchy. So if anarchy would be the distribution of power to the periphery and without any central authority, this is the absolute opposite. So I guess the reason it's happening now is because we're seeing the rise of anarchy. And we're seeing that in the Gilets Jaunes movement. We're seeing that in other political dissident movements. We're seeing that with the rise of Bitcoin, which is a decentralized currency that takes on fiat money and central banks. So as you see now the forces rallying to preserve their freedom and to preserve their free speech rights, the totalitarian forces are amassing and aggregating power.
So I think it's also, they call it soft totalitarianism. And the thing is, I think a lot of these people really believe that they're just doing the best and that, they're trying to make society perfect in their image. And they don't, they feel like because these people are not behaving the way they want them to, that they're just deplatforming them. At least we're not kneecapping them.
Well, to put it into commercial terms, totalitarianism means you don't have to fiddle around with customer service, right? So, I mean, if you have a business and like, for example, with these big platforms like PayPal or Microsoft or Apple, have you ever tried to call customer service? Hello? No, you don't. There is no customer service because they have a monolithic platform that cookie cuts mass obedience through behavioral economics and other tropes. And it's a cost advantage if you can rely on totalitarianism and get the government to go with you in on totalitarianism. And there's no buffer between totalitarian corporations in America and the United States government. They seem to be fused together at this point without any white water between them or blue water between them. You've got now a dystopian nightmare.
So again, they control your thoughts and actions. I'll read you the quote from Benito Mussolini, how he saw totalitarianism. Like, of course, he thought it was a good thing. Like, he was like proud of his corporatism and totalitarianism, but he described it as everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. So, in the gradations of authoritarianism, a simple authoritarian just wants political power, and you're free to express certain thoughts within that, but you just can't challenge their political power. Here, you can't challenge social ideas, economic ideas. You can't challenge any of the orthodoxy of what of their ideology. Right, because it's not cost effective. So the folks with the billions and billions of dollars, the politician in America, AOC, Cortez, she's really making a big stink by saying, we got to revisit tax rates. We got to revisit this whole idea of billionaires. Is having a billionaire immoral? Is there an immorality to having $1 billion? And this is getting huge play, huge traction in American media. So the reaction of the billionaires is not to maybe take a step back and say, I wonder if she's got any kind of a talking point here to think about this, to double down on their totalitarianism because they're running scared. There's nothing more dangerous in the world than a scared billionaire. So we're going to move on to the next headline, but I just want to say, I think gold, silver, Bitcoin in this sort of day and age of very well-meaning totalitarianism, it's probably a safer place to be because they might not like how you spend their money. Of course, that's why we're moving towards a cashless society because there is more control, the ability to control you, what you're able to consume or buy. And that brings me to China, a story from China. And wolfstreet.com, record defaults by Chinese companies, fake cash and fake accounting. So there's a record number of defaults happening, and yet the Chinese rating agencies, I think Dagong, remember we covered when they created that a few years ago? Well, all of their ratings are perfect. It's like a utopia. Apparently there are no junk-rated bonds available in China. These are domestic bonds, not those raising funds from outside the country. So these are internally raised funds. And if you look at the United States, as Wolfsheep points out, the above chart is the opposite of U.S. corporate credit ratings, where there are only 2 companies with AAA ratings, Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson, and a smallish number with AA ratings, while the vast majority of companies are rated BBB or below, all the way down to single C.
Right, so billionaires are immoral, because if they were moral, more of them would have AAA ratings. You know, you have a CCC rating, it's because you are commercially immoral. And we see very few of those. Mike Milken made immorality chic and profitable by creating original issue junk bonds in the 1980s. And that lesson has been picked up now globally. Let's all create junk because nobody's going to stop us. Well, the result is now a huge pushback.
And I want to say the fake cash point comes where the accounting from these corporations that are all AAA or AA or above A+ in China, they have defaulted on bond payments, even though their cash balance is allegedly way bigger. So Fitch Ratings is asking, like, how are these companies defaulting when they have way more cash, allegedly? So it looks like it may be fake cash. But this is the thing about totalitarianism is, like, no, the emperor never, nobody could ever point out that the emperor has no clothes in that sort of society.
Well, we got to take a break, but as Confucius said, capitalism is great on the way up, but not so great on the way down.